Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens for your Manchester City versus Leeds United preview. And as you can tell from my introduction there, I'm not particularly confident about this one. In fact, I would argue this is probably the least confident I've been going into a game for the longest time. I think you obviously look at Man City, fantastic form, fantastic team, are you the best manager in the world? You look at Leeds United and it's all going quite wrong at the moment in time, innit? We've lost 5 out of our last 6 games. We're absolutely horrendous away from home. I think maybe at the start of the season, going into the Arsenal game, which is obviously the equivalent game that you can look at as an example for this game, I actually was more confident at the time. Not that we were going to win the game, but probably we were going to keep the score down. And I was thinking going into that game, maybe a 2-0. I have the complete different response in this one. I think this could be 5. I think this could be 6. I think this could be 7. But I think what's going into this game, what we're going to have to do is just try limit this score as little as possible. And obviously, if we can nick a result, fantastic. And I'm not going in defeatist. Look, no game is a write-off. We've won at Man City before with 10 men. Under obviously Marcelo Bielsa with the Stuart Dallas game. So it can happen. And obviously we won at Liverpool and Jesse March somehow managed to coach win at Liverpool. So I'm not going to pretend that we can't get a result, but realistically, 9 times out of 10 in this, 99 out of 100, we're probably not going to get a result, and it would probably take something really special for Leeds United to get a result. Also, when you look at the fact, and we'll talk about this later in the preview, that Man City, though, decided to rest their entire squad against Leverkusen because they're playing, of course, the mighty Leeds United. You're scared, Pep, I can tell, and we are going to sink you on Saturday. Maybe not. Maybe not. But yeah, I think this is probably going to be about keeping the goals down. And I think this is probably, I don't know if it's last chance for Daniel Farke. I'm thinking at this moment in time with Farke's future, to be honest, that it's probably going to be after the Liverpool game that Leeds United make a change just because of the short frequency of time we've got. Man City's obviously this Saturday, then we've got Chelsea on Wednesday, then we've got obviously Liverpool at the weekend. So is it really going to be a turnaround for a new manager? I don't think the 49ers will do that. But we will have a look because there is some major injury news as well for Daniel Farke's side going into this one as well, which obviously, just softens the blow a bit because, why not add a bit of injury news as we're playing into this scenario? But yeah, let's get on with the preview, shall we? And let's also have a look at how I expect Leeds United to line up for this one. So if you've seen these previews before, then you'll know we talk about Daniel Farke's lineup first and what I expect Daniel Farke to do, and then we talk about the changes that I would make. Before we get into all that, of course, we have got to discuss some incoming injury news, which is that Stach, unfortunately, will be missing this game with a concussion protocol. Obviously, he picked up a concussion injury against Aston Villa when he headed the ball for the first goal and banged his head into Martinez's boot. And of course, and the worrying one, I think, is that Sean Longstaff will be missing for this game as well. He picked up a groin injury in the game against Aston Villa, which means that he will miss this one and also be out for 4 to 6 weeks, which is frustrating. So overall, with all that news coming in, this is the team that we're going to go with. Back to the Championship midfield, eh? We've got Gruev back in there, we've got Ampadu back in there, we've got Tanaka back in there. Back to the good old times, eh? But yeah, this is the team that I expect him to go with. I don't think there'll be too much changes. I think AARONSON will keep his place on the right-hand side. He got questioned about that in his press conference and sort of stuck with it. And I think this is the lineup he'll go with. The only thing that I think he could do for this game, if it's going to be slightly different, is finally go to a back 5. And I know we've talked a lot on this channel about the back 5 and is it a good idea for Leeds United? A lot of you like the idea of a back 5. And I actually think for this one, for the first time all season, potentially it's viable because I could look at it and go, well, you could throw Gruev out the team quite clearly. You could bring, and I would bring actually, Dan James onto this right-hand side. Let's go grab DJ. Where is he? There's so many players on these things now. Dan James on the right-hand side there. And we could almost go with Biol at the back, which I would imagine. We'll just go grab him there. And you could go with this as your sort of natural back 5. Ampadu and Tanaka just in front. James sort of playing rather than a right wing role, a sort of right midfield role, tucking in into a sort of 5-4-1. And obviously Nemecha leading the line, or it could be Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And I think you could line up with like this. The only thing that I've got with this, and this has been a constant problem with the 5 back in my personal opinion, is you are going to be outnumbered in midfield. Ampadu and Tanaka would be up against their midfield 3 of probably Gonzalez, Cherky, potentially Ford, and all the different players that can play in there. And you are going to be outnumbered 2 to 3 in there, which do you want to do that against Man City? However, there is benefits to this as well, because obviously we know Leeds United have conceded loads of goals down this right-hand side all season. I think Daniel Farke said in his press conference today, the last 5 goals that Leeds United have conceded have all come down this left-hand side or the opposition's right-hand side. And what a 5-back would allow is that Strout could go out and actually close them down. So we saw in obviously the game at the weekend that actually Leeds United struggled in that moment and Marlon had that free run, but obviously Strout would be able to go out there and close him down. And then Goodmanson would obviously be able to take charge of their right back or right winger, depending on how the system would line up. And it would also actually, which I think is another benefit to this, would allow Okafor to actually play a bit higher, because obviously no Strout's going to come round. And then you can almost see maybe it come in game to something like this with Ampadu, Tanaka and James just sort of tucked in, and Okafor, Nemecha and Nemecha sort of ready to launch a counter-attack to obviously give us a punch the other way. Because I think what's important in this game, and I think something that's important to mention is, yes, we're going to have to soak up pressure, and we're probably going to play quite comfortably with less than sort of 40, maybe even 30% possession this game, but we have to pose a threat. I think what we didn't do in the Arsenal game was we never posed a threat in the game. In this one, we have to pose a threat. You've got to always have a punch as you are getting punched. You can't just come sitting and be a sitting duck, because eventually they'll pick you off. You've got to show ambition to actually go and try win the game yourself. And as I said, that's for me why I'd like to see Okafor playing this one, and why I'd like to see Okafor up with Nemecha potentially. And of course, the other way going for it is you could go, well, we'll drop down James, we'll put Gruev back in. Let's go find Gruev, wherever he is. There he is. So put Gruev in and go to sort of 5-3-2. But again, the other issue with this that I find is, this space here is a nightmare. So you've got their fullback who would operate in this one. So you'd expect Goodmanson, obviously, in this system to say pick up their right winger. But then it would mean that Mateus Nunes on this side would have the freedom of this space, because you can't, Ampadu or Tanaka wouldn't be able to have the legs to get out to these runners on the side. And you end up being run all over the place, and it ends up becoming a bit of a mess. So that's sometimes why I don't like the 5-3-2, although I wouldn't be that surprised actually for this particular game for him to go with. But it was me, like we talked about in the last segment, I actually would go to the 5-4-1. I think, obviously, naturally, look, every system's going to have its downfalls. We're going to probably struggle in this game regardless, naturally. So I would, if it was up to me, I would probably go with this system, because I think this allows your best players to be on the pitch as well, and also isn't a system where we have to play Gruev. So if my best lineup, I think, for this game would be this 5-4-1. Anyway, let's get Man City in this, and let's look at how they're going to line up, and potentially maybe how Leeds United could stop them. So this is how I expect Man City to line up in this one then. And important to note, they did play a Champions League game midweek against Bayer Leverkusen at home, which they did lose 2-0. The only problem with that particular game is they actually decided to rest their entire team. So the likes of Haaland's, Doku's, Foden's, etc. didn't really feature at all in the game. So they're all fresh and ready to play against Leeds United. Of course, they are mightily scared of the mighty Whites, which why wouldn't you be with the form that Leeds United are in at this moment in time? No, I do joke. But I think, to be honest with you, when we look serious at this game, this is, as I said, this is going to be such a tricky game for Leeds United. But I think what we've got to do in this game is you've got to do the basics really well. You've got to not give up the game within half an hour, not concede daft goals, not make mistakes, soak it up. But also, when you get the moments to get Okafor in spaces in the attack, counter punch, get something going. When you look at what Spurs did when they went and won there this year 2-0, yes, they sat in and were really disciplined and defensively organised, but when they had the chance to counter and get at this high line, they used it, and when they got the chances, they took them, which is exactly what, of course, Leeds United are going to have to do. But there's no doubt, Perry's going to have to have a good game. Leeds United are going to have to defend well and resolutely. But Leeds United can do it. I don't think, look, I'm not, we've been so bad away from home, I'm not expecting us to win this game, but if we're defensively disciplined, soak it up, you never know, you get to half an hour, you get to half time, then you hopefully get to 60 minutes, maybe you nick a goal, and you never know what can happen. But the whole thing about this is, look, if you stop Haaland, I think that can help, because Haaland's got 14 goals this season. He's the top scoring Man City team by a fortune. I don't think anyone in the City team's got more than 2 goals other than this season. So if you stop him, and which is why I would have played the 3 centre-backs in this game, and you stop him, you can potentially grind something out in this game. But I'm not expecting that, of course. But yeah, let's move on to the match reaction anyway. So the score prediction part, then the final bit of the preview. What do I expect the score to be? Well, unfortunately, I think Leeds United are going to lose this. You're not going to be surprised at that, but I think Leeds United will lose. I think Leeds United are going to lose heavily. And unfortunately, I am going to predict a 5-0 loss for Leeds United. The worst loss I've predicted all season on this channel. But if you have got to the end of the show, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, massively helps the channel. And there's also this new button called a hype button. If you could press that as well, it would be massively helpful to support me and my growth of this channel. So if you could do that, that would be brilliant. But other than that, I will see you this evening for the Leeds United news show at 8 PM. So see you then, everybody, and hope you enjoyed the video. Bye for now.